abandoned on her wedding day for being too big. She never dreamed someone would choose her. It was a bright morning, the kind that filled the air with excitement and possibility. Lily had dreamed about this day for as long as she could remember. She was a kind and loving woman, someone who had always imagined her wedding to be a magical moment, a moment where everything was perfect. It wasn't just about the dress or the decorations. For her, it was about sharing her love with the man she thought would be with her forever. The day started like any wedding day should, with nervous excitement. Lily's best friend, Emma, helped her get dressed, and the anticipation was in the air as they talked about the ceremony. The dress was stunning, a beautiful white gown that made Lily feel like the star of her own story. She could already imagine walking down the aisle, everyone's eyes on her, seeing the love between her and Mark. Mark, her fiancé, had been by her side for 4 years. They had laughed together, cried together, and dreamed together. Everything seemed so right, or so she thought. Lily was a beautiful woman, with a warm heart and an even bigger personality. She didn't fit the stereotypical image of what the world often thought was perfect, but she loved herself, or at least she used to. Growing up, she had always been told she was beautiful, but over time, society's expectations made her doubt herself. Yet she was still proud of who she was. She loved life, and she was excited to start a new chapter with Mark. As Lily stood before the mirror adjusting her veil and checking that everything was in place, she couldn't help but smile. She was ready. The moment she had been waiting for had finally arrived. But deep down, something felt different. The nerves that everyone spoke about, the butterflies before saying, "I do," didn't quite match the nervous feeling in her chest. It wasn't the normal wedding jitters. It was something else, something harder to place. Emma noticed the hesitation.
"Lily, you okay?" she asked, concern flashing across her face. Lily quickly smiled and nodded, brushing away the thought.
"Just a little nervous, I guess, but I'm fine," she replied. But Emma wasn't convinced. Mark had been distant for the past few weeks, acting as though something was off. She had noticed it, but Lily had brushed it aside, thinking it was just wedding stress. Now, it seemed like something more. The knot in Lily's stomach grew tighter, but she tried to focus on the ceremony, the guests, and the happiness that was supposed to come with this moment. When the time came, Lily stepped out of the room and made her way to the venue where the guests were seated best. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she could feel the eyes of everyone around her, but she kept walking. The music played softly, and as she stepped into the aisle, she saw Mark standing at the altar. He looked handsome, dressed in a well-tailored suit, but there was something about the way he stood, his shoulders tight, his jaw set. Lily felt the tension in the air. The moment she reached the front, Mark didn't even smile. He just stared at her, his eyes hard to read. Lily's hands trembled as she held onto the bouquet, and the feeling in her chest worsened. It wasn't like the love she had always dreamed of. There was something missing, and that something became clearer with each passing second. The officiant started, but before the vows could begin, Mark suddenly stepped back. The guests murmured, unsure of what was happening. Lily's heart dropped. This was not part of the plan. "Lily," Mark said in a quiet but firm voice, his gaze never leaving her. "I can't do this." The world around her seemed to stop. Her legs shook beneath her as she looked at him, trying to process the words that had just left his mouth. "What?" she stammered, unable to believe what was happening.
"I'm sorry," Mark continued, his voice cold.
"I can't marry you. I thought I could, but you're just too big." She blinked in disbelief, her mind struggling to understand what he had said. Too big? What did that even mean? Her breath caught in her throat, and she felt the color drain from her face. Break. She stood frozen, her eyes searching his for any sign that this was a joke. But there was none. His face was serious. The guests shifted in their seats, unsure whether they should say anything. Emma's face turned pale as she looked from Lily to Mark, disbelief written across her features. Breaths. The officiant stood awkwardly, unsure of what to do, but all Lily could hear was the echo of Mark's words in her mind. Too big. The tears welled up, but she forced them down, afraid that if she cried, it would make everything worse. The one person she had trusted, the person she had thought loved her for who she was, had just walked away. And for what? For size? The very thing she had tried so hard to accept about herself. Do you... abandoning me because of how I look? Lily asked, her voice breaking.
Mark didn't even hesitate.
I can't do it. I just can't, he said again, turning away as though there was nothing left to say. Lily's mind raced. She felt a mixture of disbelief and anger, but most of all she felt an overwhelming sense of shame. How could he do this to her? How could he just leave her standing there, in front of all these people with those hurtful words hanging in the air? For a moment, everything blurred. The faces of the guests, the bright decorations, the flowers in her hand, it all faded into the background. Psst. Lily couldn't understand how the man she had loved for so long, the one who had promised to be there for her through everything, had so easily thrown it all away. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. She wanted to run, but her feet were frozen to the ground. The officiant, finally regaining composure, stepped forward, but Lily wasn't sure if she even heard what was said next. All she could think about was how her heart felt shattered, how she had been abandoned not for anything she had done, but simply because of her appearance. The man she thought would love her no matter what had just told her she wasn't enough. As the guests began to shuffle awkwardly out of the hall, Lily stood there, alone. Protection. The silence in the room was deafening. She felt like the world was crashing down on her. No one had told her that a person could feel this much pain, this much shame, all at once. But then, there was something else, something far deeper than the hurt. Anger started to rise. She wasn't just hurt by Mark's words. She was angry. Angry at him for making her feel small. Angry at herself for letting this happen. She wasn't a person to be defined by anyone's opinion, and yet Mark had made her question everything. She would never let anyone make her feel like this again. The moment may have shattered her heart, but it was also a moment that would begin to change her. Lily didn't know it yet, but this was only the start of a journey where she would find herself again, piece by piece. Lily walked away from the church with the sound of people whispering in her ears. She could hear the gasps, the hushed voices, the shock of the guests who had witnessed what just happened. It felt like the entire world had crumbled around her, and yet she couldn't even bring herself to cry. Her mind was still trying to process everything she thought she knew about love, about herself, about Mark.
How could he have said those words to her? Too big?
What did that even mean? How could he throw away years of their relationship, all the memories they had built, for something so superficial? The cool breeze hit her face as she walked out of the church, and she felt the tears begin to form in her eyes. But she didn't want anyone to see her break down. Not now. Not in front of everyone who had just watched her be abandoned. The words echoed in her mind like a cruel chant. Too big, too big. She walked aimlessly, not knowing where she was going, just needing to escape the weight of it all. It was as though the ground had fallen out from beneath her, and she was left standing in an empty, cold world. Her heart felt as though it had been torn apart, and yet there was a hollow emptiness inside of her. She didn't know where to go, who to turn to, or even what to feel. She only knew that this wasn't how her wedding day was supposed to go. The next few days were a blur. Couldn't face the world. Couldn't face her friends or family. Lily stayed in her apartment, the place she had once imagined sharing with Mark, the place where they had planned their future together. Brask. Now it felt like a prison. Everything around her seemed to mock her. The empty chair at the dinner table, the bridal magazines she had carefully chosen, the wedding photos that she had dreamed of hanging on the wall. Breath. Her phone was silent. No one called. Bad bye.
At least no one she thought would.
She had always imagined that if something went wrong, her friends would rush to her side, but it didn't happen that way. Her best friend, Emma, had tried to reach her, but Lily couldn't bring herself to answer the phone. How could she explain what had happened? How could she explain the pain she felt? The shame that had taken root inside her? In the weeks that followed, Lily isolated herself even more. She didn't go to work. She didn't leave her apartment. She didn't even check her social media accounts, afraid of what she might find. The news of her wedding disaster spread quickly. The comments from strangers, from people she had once called friends, began to flood in. Most of them were filled with sympathy, but others were filled with judgment.
It was hard for Lily to understand how people could be so cruel when they didn't know the full story.
She stayed in her apartment for days on end. Letting the darkness take over, she thought about Mark, about how everything had seemed perfect before. The way he had kissed her goodnight, the way he had whispered sweet words in her ear, the way he had promised that they would grow old together. But now, all those promises felt empty. His words about her appearance haunted her. It wasn't just the too big comment that hurt. It was the way he had looked at her, like she was something to be discarded. She thought back to every moment where he had made her feel small, every time she tried to talk about her insecurities and he brushed them off. Lily had always known that she wasn't like other women. But she wasn't thin or petite like the models she saw on TV. But she had never let it bother her before. She had loved herself. Or at least, she thought she had. She had worked hard to be confident, to not let the opinions of others define who she was. But now, Mark's words made her question everything she had believed about herself. Why wasn't she enough? Why had he decided that her size was the reason he couldn't marry her? There were nights when Lily lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling like her heart was breaking all over again. She could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her chest, as if the love she had given to Mark had been thrown back in her face. It wasn't just about losing a relationship. It was about losing trust, losing faith in herself, and losing the belief that anyone would ever choose her. But there was something in Lily that refused to let this define her forever. The days she spent hiding in her apartment were dark, but a small light inside her flickered. She had been through difficult times before. She had faced challenges, had overcome setbacks, and had pushed through moments of doubt. She couldn't let this one moment, this one betrayal, take away everything she had worked so hard to build. It wasn't easy, though. Getting out of bed every morning was a struggle. She felt like a shadow of the person she had been just a few weeks ago. But slowly, Lily began to gather the strength to step outside her apartment. She took small steps, each one harder than the last. She started with taking walks around the neighborhood, breathing in the fresh air and reminding herself that she was still here, still alive, still breathing. One day, she found herself at a local cafe sitting at a table by the window. She hadn't been to this place in months, but there was something comforting about it. It was a small, cozy spot with soft music playing in the background and the smell of freshly brewed coffee in the air. She sipped her drink slowly, letting the warmth spread through her, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a little bit of peace. That peace didn't last long, though. because the thoughts started to creep back in. What would people think of her? Would they think she wasn't good enough? Would they talk about her, just like Mark had? But then, Lily caught her reflection in the cafe's window. She saw the woman who had walked away from an impossible situation, the woman who had stood tall even when her heart had been shattered. She wasn't weak. She wasn't defined by the opinions of others. And she wasn't done yet. She was still capable of love. She was still capable of growth. She was still capable of moving forward. The road ahead would be hard. The emotional scars from Mark's words would take time to heal, and Lily knew that. But as she finished her coffee, a sense of determination began to replace the sadness. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she couldn't let one person's cruelty determine her worth. The next day, she reached out to Emma, her best friend who had been trying to contact her for so long. The conversation was long, full of tears, but also laughter. Emma had always been there for her, and Lily realized she had been hiding from the very people who loved her most.
It wasn't about being perfect. It was about being loved for who she truly was.
And so, Lily began to rebuild herself. It wasn't easy, but every day brought her closer to healing. First, she began to focus on what she loved: painting, reading, going on long walks, and taking care of herself. Slowly, she started to regain the confidence she had once had. But now it was different. This time it wasn't based on someone else's approval. This time it was about her, and only her. Lily had learned the hard way that love didn't come with conditions, but self-love did. She would learn to accept herself just as she was, and find a love that was real, one that accepted her for every part of her being, not just the parts others found easy to love. And one day when the time was right, she would find someone who saw her beauty, inside and out, and choose her in the way Mark never had. It had been several months since that devastating day. Lily had taken time for herself, working through the emotions, the pain, and the anger that had been stirred up by the way Mark had treated her.
At first, she had felt lost, unsure of how to pick up the pieces of her life after everything had fallen apart.
But little by little, she had started to rebuild. The days were still difficult, but they were also filled with small victories. The first victory had been waking up in the morning and not feeling crushed under the weight of shame. The first victory had been walking out the door, even if it was just to grab a coffee or go for a walk in the park. At first, even the smallest tasks felt like a struggle, but now she was starting to feel the spark of something inside her. Something that said she wasn't broken, that she wasn't worthless. Lily spent her days doing things that made her feel good. She rediscovered hobbies she had neglected in the past, like painting and reading, and even started taking long walks around the city. Her mornings were filled with the sound of music, her afternoons with books. The world around her seemed to have slowed down, and she had all the time she needed to figure things out. Through it all, she had learned one important lesson. Her worth wasn't determined by anyone's opinion. She realized that the pain she felt was because she had allowed someone else's perception of her to dictate how she felt about herself. Mark's rejection had hurt, not just because of the way he treated her, but because it had shaken her belief in her own worth. But now she was learning to believe in herself again. One of the most important steps in her journey was reconnecting with her friends. Emma, her best friend, had been there for her from the beginning, even when Lily had pushed her away. Emma never judged, never pressured. She simply listened and supported. After months of isolation, Lily finally felt ready to reach out to her. When Emma answered the phone, her voice was warm and full of relief.
"I've missed you,"
Emma said. "I've missed you too," Lily replied softly, her voice breaking slightly. It felt like a weight had been lifted just by hearing Emma's voice again.
I've been hiding from everything.
Breaths.
I didn't know how to face anyone after what happened. It's okay, Emma reassured her.
Bat tail. We'll get through this together. Just take your time, but don't shut me out. Dust.
You don't have to do this alone. That conversation marked the beginning of Lily's true healing.
With Emma by her side, Lily started to step back into the world. She began to reconnect with others, not just friends but also family, who had been worried about her but didn't know how to help. But slowly, Lily felt her confidence begin to grow again. She realized that, though it might take time, she could create a life for herself that was filled with love, acceptance, and joy. But this time, it would come from within. As the months passed, Lily found herself spending more time out of the apartment. She joined a book club at the local library, where she met new people who shared her love for reading. But sharp. Some were older, some younger, but all were welcoming and kind. Lily found herself enjoying the discussions and the connections she made. For the first time in a long while, she was starting to feel like herself again. Not the version of herself who had been rejected, but the woman she was becoming. Stronger, more resilient, and more certain of her worth. During this time, Lily also began to focus more on her physical health. But this time, it wasn't about changing herself to fit someone else's expectations.
She started walking regularly, and sometimes she'd even run a little.
It wasn't about losing weight or looking a certain way, but rather about feeling strong and taking care of herself. She wanted to feel good in her own skin, not for anyone else, but for her. One day, while out on one of her walks, Lily found herself in the park, sitting on a bench with a book in her hand. The sun was shining, and there was a peaceful quiet in the air. As she sat there, a man walked by with his dog, a cheerful golden retriever. The dog stopped in front of her, wagging its tail, and Lily smiled as she reached down to pet him. The man noticed and stopped as well. "She's friendly," the man said, smiling warmly. "I can tell," Lily replied, chuckling as the dog nudged her hand for more attention. The man smiled again, his eyes friendly and kind. "I'm Jason," he said, extending a hand. Breath. "Lily?" she replied, shaking his hand. They stood there for a moment, both of them watching the dog as it happily rolled around on the grass.
Are you new to the park? Jason asked, a hint of curiosity in his voice. I guess you could say that, Lily said with a small smile.
I've been taking some time for myself lately.
Jason nodded, his expression understanding. That's important.
Sometimes you need to step away from everything to find yourself again. Lily felt a sense of connection with him in that moment. Breath. She didn't know why, but something about his presence felt comforting. They talked for a little longer, and before Jason left, he asked if she wanted to meet up again sometime.
I come here often with my dog. It'd be nice to have some company, he said.
Lily was surprised by how natural the conversation had been. She hadn't expected to connect with someone so easily, especially not after everything that had happened with Mark. But there was something about Jason's kindness that made her feel safe. She agreed to meet him again the following week. Over the next few weeks, Lily and Jason met at the park regularly. Their conversations were simple at first, talking about books, movies, and their favorite places to visit in the city. But as time passed, they began to share more personal stories, and Lily found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't with anyone in a long time.
You didn't judge her, didn't rush her.
Daisy, he simply listened. And Lily began to feel something that had been missing for a long time. Trust.
Jason wasn't like Mark.
He didn't judge her based on her appearance or her past. He saw her for who she truly was, a strong, intelligent, and beautiful woman with a kind heart. Breath. Slowly, Lily began to realize that maybe she was capable of love again. Real love.
The kind that wasn't based on appearance or perfection, but on acceptance, respect, and genuine connection.
One afternoon, after a long walk and a cup of coffee, Jason looked at Lily and said, "I'm really glad we met, you know? I've enjoyed getting to know you." Narration. Lily smiled, her heart swelling with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope.
I'm glad too. The idea of love had once seemed like a distant dream to Lily.
But now, sitting across from someone who saw her for who she truly was, she realized that it wasn't just a dream. It was possible.
And this time, she wasn't going to settle for anything less than the love she deserved.
Lily stood at the park one sunny afternoon watching Jason laugh as his dog Max chased a stick across the grass. The joy in the air was contagious, and for the first time in a long while, Lily felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, breaths. She had spent so many months in emotional turmoil, trapped in her own thoughts, questioning her worth, and hiding from the world. But today, standing next to Jason as he casually tossed the stick for Max, Lily realized how far she had come. Perception. She was beginning to feel like herself again, and it was thanks to the kindness of someone who hadn't once judged her. Over the weeks, their friendship had blossomed into something more. They had shared countless conversations, sometimes laughing over silly stories, other times talking about their lives, their fears, and their hopes for the future. There was no pressure, no rush, something she hadn't felt in a long time. He didn't treat her like she was fragile, but he also made sure to listen when she shared her struggles. And as time passed, Lily found herself looking forward to their time together more and more. It wasn't just about the conversations or the walks in the park anymore. It was about the connection they shared, a quiet understanding between them that spoke volumes. She had almost forgotten what it felt like to be seen for who she truly was, not for her size or her past, but for her heart, her personality, and the strength she had developed over time. One evening, after a particularly beautiful sunset they had watched together by the river, Jason turned to her. "Lily," he said softly, his voice sincere, "I really enjoy spending time with you."
I've never met anyone who can make me laugh as much as you do. And I admire how strong you are.
You've been through so much, and yet here you are, still standing tall.
Lily looked into his eyes, feeling warmth spread through her chest.
She had never been complimented this way before, especially not after everything she had been through. Mark had made her feel invisible, like her worth was tied only to how she looked. But Jason didn't see her as a size, as a number, or as a mistake. He saw her for the woman she was, the woman who was resilient, kind, and worthy of love, no matter what anyone else had told her.
I'm glad we met too, Lily said, her voice filled with emotion.
You've helped me realize that I'm more than what happened to me. I've been holding on to a lot of pain, but with you, it feels like I can finally breathe.
Jason smiled at her, his expression tender. "I'm not going anywhere, Lily. I'm here for you. I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be you." In that moment, something inside Lily shifted. The walls she had built around her heart, the ones that had been there since Mark's rejection, began to crumble. It was as if a weight had been lifted, and she could finally see clearly again. She wasn't just worthy of love, she deserved it. Not because of her appearance, but because of who she was. Someone who had fought through heartbreak, who had rebuilt herself from the ground up, and who was finally ready to open her heart again. The following weeks were a turning point for Lily. She began to trust Jason more, sharing parts of her past she had never spoken about. Her fears, her insecurities, the things she had carried in silence for so long. She shared them with him, and instead of judgment, she received understanding. Jason never tried to fix her. He simply listened, held her hand, and assured her that it was okay to be vulnerable. One evening, as they sat on a bench in the park, Jason took her hand in his touch warm and reassuring.
"Lily," he said gently, "I know things haven't always been easy for you,
but I want you to know that I see you. I see how strong, how kind, and how beautiful you are, inside and out. You've been through a lot, and I admire you more than you know." Lily's heart fluttered, and for the first time in a long time she felt truly seen. She had spent so many years doubting her worth, questioning if anyone would ever accept her for who she was. But Jason had shown her that real love wasn't about changing herself or fitting into someone else's idea of beauty. It was about being yourself. All the good and the bad, and still being loved and accepted for it. Over time, their relationship deepened. They spent more time together, whether it was cooking meals at Lily's apartment, going on long drives, or simply sitting in silence, enjoying each other's company. The connection between them was undeniable, and as they grew closer, Lily began to feel something she had almost forgotten, the spark of hope. She had once believed that her happiness depended on finding someone who would accept her appearance, someone who wouldn't judge her based on the way she looked. But Jason had shown her that love wasn't about fitting into anyone's standards. It was about acceptance, respect, and emotional connection. It was about being with someone who saw your heart, not just your body. One night, as they walked through the park under the stars, Jason stopped and turned to her. "Lily," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "I don't want to rush anything, but I feel like I've found something really special with you."
I can't promise that everything will be easy, but I promise that I will always be here, supporting you, loving you, and seeing you for who you truly are." Lily felt a lump form in her throat.
It was everything she had ever wanted to hear. But more than that, it was the truth. Jason wasn't just saying the right words. He was showing her, day by day, that love wasn't about superficial things. It was about acceptance, trust, and deep, unwavering affection. Breath.
"I feel the same way,"
Lily said, her voice soft but steady.
"I never thought I'd be able to trust someone again after everything that happened.
But with you, it feels different. I feel safe. I feel like I can finally be myself, without fear of being judged."
Jason smiled, and in that moment, Lily realized how far she had come.
But John, the Devers know God, from being abandoned on the most important day of her life to finding a love that was real, authentic, and full of acceptance.
It hadn't been easy, and there had been times when she doubted herself, when she thought she would never heal.
But here she was, standing beside someone who loved her for who she truly was. Someone who didn't need her to change. In Jason's eyes, Lily saw not just love, but the promise of a future, one where she could simply exist as herself. And that, she realized, was the greatest gift she could ever ask for. As the days passed, Lily's heart continued to heal, piece by piece. The past was still there, lingering in the background, but it no longer held the same power over her. She had learned to look at herself differently, and more importantly, she had learned that her value wasn't determined by anyone else's opinion. But it was something she carried within herself. Something that was uniquely hers, no matter what anyone else thought. The love she had found with Jason felt different than anything she had ever imagined. It wasn't the kind of love she had dreamed of as a little girl, with the fairy tale wedding and the perfect partner. It was better. It was real. It was grounded in trust, mutual respect, and an understanding of each other's strengths and weaknesses. Jason had never once tried to change her. Instead, he accepted her completely, flaws and all, and that acceptance made her feel more alive than she ever had before. One evening, as they sat together on Lily's balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky with shades of pink and orange. Jason turned to her, his eyes serious but filled with warmth.
You know, he said, his voice soft, I've never met anyone like you.
I've never felt this way before. I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'm here for you.
But always.
Lily's heart skipped a beat.
It was a simple statement, but it carried so much weight. She had spent so long feeling like she wasn't worthy of unconditional love, but Jason had proven to her time and time again that she was more than enough. He loved her for who she was, not for how she looked, not for the mistakes she had made, but for the person she had become.
I feel the same way, Lily said, her voice trembling with emotion.
I never thought I'd be able to trust anyone again, especially after everything that happened with Mark. But with you, it's different.
You make me feel like I'm enough, just as I am.
Jason smiled, and for a moment, they simply sat there in silence, letting the beauty of the moment wash over them. There were no expectations, no pressure. Just two people who had found something real, something that neither of them had expected, but something they both knew they wanted to hold on to. As the weeks passed, their bond grew even stronger. They continued to spend time together, going on long walks, cooking meals together, and laughing over silly inside jokes that only they understood. The connection between them deepened, and with each passing day, Lily felt more and more like herself again, the woman who was kind, strong, and worthy of love. One Saturday afternoon, Jason took Lily to a small art gallery downtown. It was a quiet, intimate place, filled with beautiful paintings and sculptures, and as they wandered through the rooms, Lily felt a sense of calm that she hadn't known in years. She had always loved art, but in the past she had often felt disconnected from the things she once enjoyed. It was as though the pain of her past had dulled the colors of the world. But with Jason by her side, the world seemed brighter, more vibrant. As they stood in front of a painting that caught her attention, Jason turned to her, a thoughtful expression on his face, breath. I want to ask you something, he said, his voice steady but filled with anticipation. Lily looked up at him, her heart racing. What is it? Jason took a deep breath, as though gathering his thoughts. I know we've only been together for a short time, but what I feel for you is real.
I want to spend my life with you. No matter what happens, I want to be by your side, supporting you, loving you, and growing with you.
Lily's breath caught in her throat. She had never expected this moment to come so soon, but as she looked into Jason's eyes, she realized that this was exactly where she wanted to be.
It wasn't about rushing into things.
It was about knowing that they had something special, something worth holding on to. I've never felt this way before, Lily said, her voice filled with emotion.
You've made me believe in love again. I didn't think I could trust anyone after what happened, but with you, I feel safe.
I feel seen. I feel like I'm enough. And I want to be with you too. Jason's eyes softened, and a slow smile spread across his face. He reached out and took her hand, holding it gently in his. Then let's make this official, he said, his voice full of sincerity. I don't need anything big or flashy. I just want to know that you're in this with me.
For the long haul. Lily's heart swelled with emotion.
She had come so far, from the pain of being abandoned on her wedding day, to the isolation she had felt in the months after, to this moment where she had found love again. It hadn't been easy, and it hadn't been quick, but it hadn't been worth it. She had learned to love herself, to trust again, and to accept the love that Jason had to offer. I'm in this with you, she said softly, squeezing his hand. We're on the long haul. From that moment forward, Lily knew that her journey had come full circle. She had spent so much of her life believing that her worth was tied to her appearance, to how others saw her. But now, she knew that true love wasn't about being perfect. It was about being real, being vulnerable, and accepting each other for who they truly were. As time went on, Lily and Jason's relationship continued to flourish. They talked about their dreams, their fears, and the future they hoped to build together. They made plans for their life, not just as a couple, but as individuals who would continue to grow and support each other along the way. Lily had finally found the love she had always dreamed of, but it wasn't the kind of love she had once imagined. It wasn't the fairy tale romance or the perfect relationship. It was something deeper, something real, something built on trust, respect, and acceptance. She had learned that love wasn't about being chosen for how you looked, but about being chosen for who you are. And so, Lily's journey came full circle. From the pain of rejection to the joy of acceptance, she had found her place in the world. Rest. She had learned to love herself, and in doing so had found a love that was real and true, and that, she knew, was more than enough.